there was this customer, and we actually was referred to this customer by a local hygienist, Heather Delaporte with Ultimate Environmental Services, who I highly recommend, by the way. But there was this job out in Daytona Beach that she called me on, and she said that this customer had a problem, and it was kind of a unique problem. And she sent me a report, and I went out there. And the gentleman that owned the home with his family had bought the home, I think, about 5 years prior, and it happened to be in an area that he discovered later where there was some rising water situations, some groundwater issues that had not been disclosed. But to make a long story short, the other homeowner prior to him had done a bunch of what I would say is probably non-code construction, and filled in some slabs areas and stuff like that, with the consequence of it being that water was seeping up through his slab into his home. And as we covered in another session, rising water is not covered by your normal homeowner's insurance, but this was rather unique. And I'm not sure even flood coverage would have covered it, which it did not. So I talked to this gentleman. It turns out that he has a special needs child. I can't get into details, of course, but it was one of those children that you hear about that is on the cusp of I don't know what you would call it, but he had a condition. It was genetic, I think it was. And it was one of those orphan type situations for drugs, and they have not developed treatment for this, or at least it's on the experimental side. So this guy was working full time. Of course, his wife is, and they had other kids, and then they had this special needs child that was very susceptible to his immune system, right? And he had no coverage. So I go there and I'm looking at the house. I know what needs to be done, and it's quite extensive. And, I didn't know it at the time, but he then kind of filled me in later, and that he was going to have to pay out of pocket for all this. And it was a domino effect of cause, and, origin of water and how it affected his house. And after I got to know him, I really liked this guy. We as a company just decided to go in and help him anyway. And I told him, I said, look, there is no way, and I know what needs to be done here, okay? He had spent all his resources on traveling with this child to out of state for treatments and assessments and everything else. So they really had no funds. So what we did is we went in and did a full, in this case, demo mold remediation of their home. Quite extensive, moved all their contents out of the home, cleaned the contents, remediated the home, and got it to a clearance standard for them. And as a consequence, because Christmas was coming, by the time we were done, and we put up some basic insulation boards and stuff to cover where the drywall was missing. They had a concrete floor, but they were thrilled because the floor, was still susceptible to some water seepage. But they had Christmas that year, and all of them were able to move back into their house. All their contents we put back all in their rooms, and they were able to function in that house, albeit they just had concrete floors, which was, again, no big deal to them. And they had some drywall work they still had to do, but we covered all that up with plastic and poly to try to make it look as nice as possible. It was a 2.5 month project, but that's the one that I remember. And he was obviously very grateful. And we as a company feel very, very good about that.